peut commencer tout de suite? Okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation, Identifying and Managing Legal Risks in Blockchain Application. So it's a very broad subject with potentially a lot of different issues, and I will begin towards presenting myself very quickly. So I'm Simon Polro. I work with Variable. It's a consensus spokes building derivative products on Ethereum. And before joining Variable, I was a lawyer for 6 years, and I worked in the corporate and tax field. And I've been studying blockchain issues for a long time, and at Variable, I'm notably responsible for legal and operations. I wanted to make this this presentation because everybody speaks about legal risks in blockchain, but risk management in an environment where basically the law is unclear can be extremely difficult. So this is a kind of presentation to make an introduction to how to manage those risks. So I begin with a short presentation of what I want and what I will do, because I won't give proper legal advice in this presentation. I'm not, I can't do this, and it would be very risky for me to do this. And I won't give you precise instructions. It doesn't make any sense. Every single project has its own issues, and you cannot give precise instructions in a broad presentation like this. What I will do is give a few practical advices on risk management strategies. So how can you identify your legal risks, and how can you try to mitigate them, limit them. And I will also present terrible slides because I made them yesterday and they're not very nice, sorry. A few elements of context. We are building blockchain applications, so basically all what we do is risky. We are building on unstable technology, so we face technological risks. We are building with volatile assets, so we are facing financial risks. And we are building in an unclear legal environment, and we are facing legal and tax risks. So we are used to risks, that's why we're here, but that doesn't mean that we need to be reckless with these risks, notably regarding the different kind of consequences that the risks can have. Basically, technological risks, the worst case scenario is that you lose your client's money. It's not very good, and they can sue you, but basically you just build a better application to manage this kind of risks. Financial risks, you can hedge them with financial instruments, but the legal and tax risks, it's more difficult. You have to go deeper, go with advisors, and basically understand a lot of different fields, because blockchain concerns a lot of different legal fields. And you can be sued, you can be fined, you can be taxed, and you can even be jailed. So probably it's important to have in mind the few more important risks that you can face in the blockchain space. So as I said, yeah, everybody is talking about legal risks, and you've probably heard about securities, subpoena, regulation, MAS, CFTC, SEC, security. Yeah, we speak out about security, because every single legal analysis right now has been very centered around US law. It's very logical because US is the place where most of the early blockchain applications were developed, but of course you can't limit yourself to these kind of issues. And maybe a last element of context is that the legal risks are actually increasing right now. The regulators around the world are basically freaking out after the ICO boom and the crypto bubble of the end of 2017. Until now, the general rule was, okay, the blockchain thing, it's funny. There are geeks having fun with fake money. It's not really a problem because it's like very small transactions. It doesn't concern a lot of people. And with the ICO boom and the crypto bubble, basically it becomes a real subject, and the regulators have to react. So you have SEC warning on exchange yesterday. They did one on ICOs on December 17. SEC is the financial operator in the US. And basically you have the same kind of reaction in every single developed country. You have, of course, the risk is increased by bad behavior of certain actors in the field that attracts unnecessary attention in the blockchain field in general. The global understanding of blockchain is increasing, which is good news for our business and bad news for our legal risks, because of course regulators and judges and everybody understands much better what we're doing and probably understands also much better how to actually regulate us. And we still don't have any clear regulation, which means that all this activity leads to more uncertainty and more risks. So, now that I have presented this very good legal landscape to you, how do you identify your risks? I made a tentative legal risk scale. So it's not legal advice anymore, so once again, but you can basically identify kind of projects and the amount of legal risk they face. So the 4 is the worst case scenario, and the 1 is the best case scenario. So if you have a DApp, if you're actually developing a DApp that is not dealing with value, you're building infrastructure, apps, provenance, application, proof of blockchain. So it's more like you're using blockchain not to use tokens, transfer value or anything. You're just using blockchain as a proof of something. Then you have legal uncertainties on your activity, but probably the legal risk you face are not as important as the next categories. You have DApps dealing with simple exchange of value. So basically you are selling something, or which is a service, or a good, a virtual good, or you are incentivizing an exchange of service, and you are operating as some kind of market, but for very small amounts and on service provision or things like that. So examples is like CryptoKitties, charity projects, incentivization of participation. You have projects that incentivize answering to certain questions, incentivize participating to open source projects, everything. And then bounties and these kind of things. So here you are actually dealing with value, so you probably have a bit more risks, but it's still nothing compared to category 3 and 4. I made 3 and 4, basically it's almost the same amount of risks. Because here you are dealing with ICOs, token sales, and DAOs. I put them together because basically ICOs are the simplest form of DAO you can imagine. And you are actually dealing with huge amounts. You are dealing with proposing value to a wide public, and probably issuing some kind of securities to the public. And of course financial apps, where you are creating exchanges, derivative products, or gambling. These include also projects like prediction markets, which is probably something in the derivative product category. So, first thing to do is to identify, okay, where am I on this scale? And if you're in category 3 and 4, you need a lawyer very soon. And if you're category 1, you have to be aware of the risks and be careful on the way you structure your activity, but probably you have less important risks to face. Then from there, this is a very broad landscape of the potentially applicable regulations to any kind of blockchain project. So my recommendation would be just read this list, and if there is something here that you don't know at all, that this is something that you really don't know what it is about, you should probably have a look at that, because it will have consequences on your project at some point in the future. So the first thing is tort law, tort or contract law, which is basically when you cause a damage to someone and you have to repair the damage. Tax law, of course, very important. Consumer protection rules. If you are selling to someone who is not a specialized investor, someone who is not a professional, you need to take care of that. Data protection rules. If you are collecting any kind of personal data from your clients, you need to respect some very precise rules in every single country in the world. You need to know about that. Corporate law, of course. KYC AML is know your customer and anti-money laundering rules. So these are rules applicable when you are collecting money from people. You actually have to know who are those people and where the money they are giving you comes from, in the general terms. Accredited investors rule. So in certain country, you can only take money from people who are accredited, which means that they have a certain level of understanding on money management. And of course, you have the sectoral regulation. So if you are building a decentralized application on a very specific field, you have to be extra careful to have a look at this and understand what it is. So financial regulation, energy regulation, gambling, and everything. If you don't, the potential consequences of not dealing with legal rules are both immediate and long-term consequences. So immediately, if you don't respect anything, you will probably have troubles with your bank every time you want to, because if you're dealing with, okay, you're creating a decentralized application, all is good, you're collecting Ether, but at some point you have to pay your rent, you have to pay employees, you have to pay for things in euros or on any other fiat currency, and you will probably need a bank account for that. And now we are at a point where banks won't open a bank account for you if you didn't respect the regulation beforehand. So you have to be extra careful in advance on that. There is also, of course, the tax liability. If you didn't anticipate the structuration of your project, your tax liability can end up very, very high, and probably much higher than if you did an analysis beforehand. And you will have troubles also with accountants that are supposed to actually certifying your books, and probably they won't be able or don't want to do this if you didn't respect the rules. In the long term, of course, unhappy investors or consumers may sue you or denounce you to regulators that will then in turn crack down. Basically, you can have a regulator price crack down on your application, either on yourself, if you really badly structure the deal, or on your company, if you have a legal entity that is actually doing something. Maybe the red flags, it's a list of 4 red flags that probably you should, in any case, never do. Because it will attract unnecessary attention on your project. The first thing is collecting huge amount of money from completely unknown people. You could probably do that 2 years ago because the field was very new and nobody was having a look at what's going on with ICOs and what's going on with token sales or any other kind of DAOs or things like that. But today it's probably a very, very bad idea to do this. Operating without any legal structure or with a badly structured one. This is very, very important again. If you are doing something by yourself, you are basically the target of any kind of legal proceedings, and you don't want to do that. On a personal level, you don't want to end up in jail or something like that. So create a legal structure and a good one. Not paying any tax anywhere is also a big red flag. Somebody will notice at some point, and probably someone that you don't want. So whether it is the country where you are actually living, or the country where the company is incorporated, at some point you will have to pay some tax. And of course, avoid, if you can, deceiving people, because 99% of the legal issues you face are created by someone who is not happy with what you did. So those are the 4 red flags. And once you have identified, like, okay, I have these risks, broad risk, I have to manage them. How can I, in practice, what are the practical steps that my company, myself can do to move forward actually implement the company that I want to create, and do this without facing too much risk. So the first thing is, yeah, read, maybe yourself or have someone in your team read about the legal rules and tax rules applicable to your industry in particular. So general rules, and probably the news that are related to blockchain industry in particular. You should have a deeper look on that. You should incorporate, I said it before, incorporate a legal structure as soon as possible. Whether it's a company or a non-profit is irrelevant, but you have to create something like that will actually host your activity and bear most of the risks for you. And of course, you should hire an advisor, a legal advisor, very, very soon. Like, as soon as you can afford it, and maybe even before, if you can convince him to work for free until you have some money. You need someone that actually has an experience in the field. It's not something that you can advise yourself expert in. You can try to do this, but you will make very big mistakes at some point. Even lawyers make mistakes, and they are very specialized in the field. So you should have an advisor very, very soon. And probably, well, it can be an internal advisor, an external, but you need an expert advice, and probably you need more than one. And the last thing, of course, do not mess with your clients, investors, partners, and advisors. They are those people who are the most likely to sue you at some point. And so those are really broad rules, and I'm going a bit deeper, like how to manage your risks properly. Properly means actually you need probably more than one lawyer. You need a lawyer in the country where you will create your company, and you probably need a lawyer for you. Like the issue is often the blockchain projects create a company in another country than the country where you're living for various reasons that are somewhat related to taxes or to financial regulation or these kind of things. But they're still living in another country. And this can be the cause of important legal risks. So you need to check with a local, with a lawyer that actually operates in your country of residence to be sure that this structure that you created abroad does not create legal risks for you personally in your country of residence. And it's very likely that it will. So be very careful about that. This is more like don't listen to your cognitive bias. Listen to all the advices, especially those you don't want to hear. When you are asking for advices to a lawyer, he will give you like, okay, you have those risks, and probably one of them you don't want to have it. You don't want to deal with it, and you will probably make as if it doesn't exist. Don't do this, because it's probably the worst risk that you didn't listen to, and it will have very bad consequences in the future. So do an honest risk assessment and move forward. How do you do a honest risk assessment? You tell your advisors, to list the consequences of actually not implementing what they are advising you to do, which helps you understand basically what is exactly the risk that I'm facing here. Because you will probably not be able to implement everything. We are in an environment that is unclear. Some regulators won't follow you. Some people won't want to work with you. So it's possible that you will have to just move forward without dealing with every kind of risk. So probably you just need to check, okay, what is the exact risk that I'm taking by moving forward in this context, and can I take this risk? Can I take this risk? What risk makes sense from a business perspective? Can I accept them personally? My team, my investors. So you just have to check this and just move forward with the project. You won't be able to cover every single legal risk before moving forward. So it's really a question of risk assessment. I'll end my presentation with like 4 examples of risk management done wrong. I will be very quick on this. So this is things like you think you're doing the things right and probably not. So the first thing is thinking that you face no legal risk because your IP is decentralized. Probably you should answer yourself. You should ask yourself a second question in this kind of situation. Do you get any money from this app? And if the answer is yes, this assumption is almost certainly wrong, because you are actually using the application to get some money, so you are responsible for this. And if the answer is no, it's still very likely wrong, because you're still the creator of the application. And even if you don't have any control on it, it's very, very likely that the regulator will think that you have some kind of responsibility for deploying it on the blockchain. I only need to care about local, this is the example of US law, because I live here. This is probably wrong also. Except if all your clients are in the US and you are a US resident, and you have to be able to check that all your clients are in the US. So if this is yes, then probably. If this is no, or I don't know, then the answer is probably no. You need to check in broad, not in every detail, but you need to check the rules applicable everywhere. I have this legal structure in a shady tax haven that handles everything, so everything is fine. This is, of course, not true, and you should probably check with a lawyer that this structure is like operating with enough substance, and so that you don't face any actual legal risks by just having this structure, and that the legal structure is actually substantiated enough that it couldn't be considered as artificial arrangement or something like that. So if your lawyer didn't inform you about artificial arrangement or substance, then ask him again about this, and if he or she says, don't worry, ask another lawyer. And the last one, I face no legal risk because I have a lawyer. So this is, of course, plain wrong. A lawyer will help you identify the risk, but you will still be held responsible in the end, so choose your advisor wisely. This is my last advice. Thank you for listening, and see you.
One, two, yeah, okay. So, good morning, welcome. I will present to you about Rotkehlchen, which is an asset management and tax reporting and accounting tool that I have been working on. So, first, a little bit about myself. So, I'm Lefteris Karapetsas. I've been in Ethereum as a core developer working for the foundation since middle of 2013. I have touched many projects while working for the foundation, like Solidity, ETHAS, and the C++ client, which is now being resurrected by the great guys at Berlin. Okay, cool, thanks. I have been working in scaling, and specifically for Brainbot, with developing Raiden, the payment channel scaling solution for Ethereum. So what I'm going to talk to you about is a very typical situation that we have when somebody gets into crypto. Let's say Alice, she goes to Kraken, she buys some Bitcoin with Euro, then later she buys some ETH from Kraken, still with euro. Then she discovers another exchange called Poloniex and starts buying other coins. And then she starts trading between those coins, being very happy and making some imaginary money. Then she starts to see that she can actually lend a part of those coins to people doing margin trading and still make some more profit. Then someone else pays her for some freelance work that she has done and pays her in ETH. A year later, she also finds out that she has some coins out of nowhere through something called an airdrop. So we have many transactions that have happened, and in an ideal world, all of the actions that Alice took would have been calculated automatically, and the tax implications would be withheld by the system. So she would not have to do anything. Unfortunately, in reality, Alice has to figure it out on her own. She has to know the intricacies of the jurisdiction, and she will have to deal with huge amounts of data because when you deal with exchanges and if God forbid you're doing automatic trading, then any manual calculation is totally out of the table. So what can she do? There are many options right now. One is Bitcoin tax, probably the most well-known option. Another one is coin taxes. Those guys are just starting right now from what I see in March. The one that I prefer is cointracking.info. It's one from based in Germany, and they deal with the German system better than the other ones, and they have very good reporting. Probably there are more, but these are the ones that I saw during my research. So what is the common theme in all of them? You go to the website. Either you import all of your trades and taxable events manually, or you connect with the exchanges and they automatically import the trades. Then the website provides you with the reports and statistics that you can use in order to do your tax report. There is a big problem with this. You hand them your most important data, basically on a golden platter. It's a centralized service. All of them are in a website. You just give them all of your financial transactions, and you do not know what they do with them. You do not know what they do with them because it's not open source. Essentially, you just give it to a centralized service. You do not know how they're calculating what they're calculating. You do not know what kind of report it is that they are providing, and so doesn't your financial jurisdiction. So if at some point they wanted to audit you, you could just tell them to go to a Bitcoin tax or coin tracking, but they would not know what kind of algorithm was used in order to calculate the result. So what can we do? I saw this problem when I wanted to do my own tax report. And so I started doing some market research to see if people would be interested in something different. So I got about 180 responses from people interested in crypto and who had the same problem as I did. Through this presentation, I will present more questions of this survey, but this is what I would like to start with. So essentially, if you would prefer open source code that handles your financial data, including connection to exchanges, or is closed source okay? So the result was honest enough, but also shows that people would prefer a new solution, something that would allow them to be able to audit their own financial data. So 76.5% actually stated that they would be okay, they would prefer an open source application. So that brings me to my proposed solution. It is Rotkehlchen. That's the name of the application. For people who know me a bit better, I tend to give names of birds to everything that I create because I have a fascination with birds. This is the robin bird, and that's how it's German. And my pronunciation in German is probably also terrible because I'm from Greece. Yeah, it's a big story. So what is Rotkehlchen? It's an open source local application. So as opposed to all of the other current solutions right now, this works locally. You download it or you build it from source. It offers data encryption, and it can optionally communicate with an external server for additional features. So it's open source. I actually open sourced it a few days ago. You can go to this link and get it. You are able to inspect and audit what the application is doing, and you yourself can help improve it. It's Python and Electron, so basically mostly Python and JavaScript for the UI stuff. It's a local application, so that means that you do not have to upload your data anywhere. The data is always kept with your computer. You are not depending on an external service for your application to function. So if a centralized web server goes down, you still can use the application. So it offers data encryption. So basically your data is encrypted locally by a password of your choice. You own your data. So if someone else accidentally or on purpose gains access to your device, they will not be able to read it unless they also have your password. So here is a screenshot to see how it looks. Essentially, you're greeted by this dashboard. And these are fake data, by the way. So Sandra is supposed to have these exchanges. And you get a per exchange overall balance. So this is how much she has in her bank. And this is how much she has in crypto accounts, so Bitcoin, Ether, and any other token. You can automatically connect with exchanges and pull data. You can customize the behavior depending on your jurisdiction. Because, for example, in Germany, there is this rule that 1 year, so if you hold something for 1 year, then it's no longer taxable. So this is taken into account. I know better the German jurisdiction, and I can. This is what I have inside the application right now. But with time, I hope, and with the help of other people, to incorporate the rules of other jurisdictions. You can customize the behavior in other ways also, like say there is a token that you have traded in but don't want to be in the tax report for any reason. You can just put it in the ignored tokens. And you can set the addresses to monitor for changes, because it's also an asset management application. So you process the trades depending on the settings, and you also process the taxable events depending on the settings. So a taxable event is anything, like you do some freelance work for someone and you get paid by ETH or by Bitcoin. This you also need to put in the report. And at the end you get something like that. My UI skills are terrible, I know, but anyway, this is it. And you get a total net profit loss report, and then all the number of trades in a table with many, many pages that you can export and send to your tax authorities. So that's all nice and good, but open source has one big problem. It's great for the user because they can see everything. They can audit what is happening in their application, but for the creator of the application, there is a problem. That's monetization. So there have been many ways, like Kickstarter, well, ICOs also, to try and monetize open source, or donations. So donations work, but they do not scale well. And also users expect a lot more from you when you are working on an open source application, because they can see how much you work, when you work, and they can just start saying, hey, you don't work enough, or you should work more, etc. So I had also thought of this problem when asking people in the survey, and wanted to see if people would be interested in helping to monetize an open source application. So what I proposed is to have an open source application that has a premium version for subscriptions, and ask people if they would be interested in it. So this is an honest answer that basically gave me a bit more incentive to continue with developing the application in a premium version. So 77.8% of the people said that they would actually use a premium version of such an open source application if it existed. Then going for actual amounts of money that they would be willing to pay, what's interesting here is that I asked them if the program is closed source, how much would you be willing to pay for a yearly subscription? If you look at the amounts, so the first two ranges, it's like 56.5% for 1 to 50 and 35.1% for 50 to 100. That's for a closed source application. Now, if you check for an open source, not only is it very close, but it's actually a bit more. So that was a surprising result for me. But it also proves that people would be willing to pay more for an application that they would be able to audit themselves what it is doing. Then some more like obvious questions. So if there is, if the program is open source, would you be willing to? So would you like to have a donation button? 97% said that yes. And then if there is a premium subscription and you do not get it, would you be willing to donate, provided there is such an option? So here it's also an honest answer. 80.1% said that they would. So, and if yes on donations, how much would you donate? That's pretty standard. Like most of them would donate only on the $1 to $50 range. So where does this bring me? To a monetization plan for such an application. So it would be to support the free and open source application and help grow the basic version. Then help to get users more responsible and take ownership of their data by having a local application that allows them to do asset management and taxes, but also provide this extra premium subscription that provides you extra features. And also accept donations from people who do not want to premium but still want to help. So that takes me to Rotkehlchen Premium, which basically will be giving you dedicated support both in GitHub and via email, priority in the feature request consideration. So there are a hell of a lot of exchanges. Currently, Rotkehlchen supports only Kraken, Poloniex, Binance, and Bittrex. So if some people want more exchanges, I would consider their request much more seriously if they have a premium subscription. There is an extra API for premium users. They can synchronize their data between devices. And remember, it's encrypted data, so even if they synchronize it through my server, I cannot see that data. The server has an Ethereum node that makes it for faster queries, because if you have 20 Ethereum addresses and 50 different tokens, if you try to query Etherscan for all of them, it will take some time. And extra reports on your assets and trades history, and a lot more that is gonna come soon. Yeah, so from here and on, what's next? So, open premium registrations, so to start registrations for the premium subscription and to release the first alpha version, including the first premium features, which would include the data synchronization. That is unfortunately something that I wanted to have done by today, but the nature of software development as it is tends to take a lot more time than you expect. And then to provide easy to install binaries in Linux, because right now it's only a source install. Then support Mac OS X and Windows. And then to add further premium features. And since now it's only going to be a yearly subscription, in the future, if enough non-tax related features are developed for premium, then I also plan to change it into a monthly subscription. Because right now, you do taxes only once per year, so a yearly subscription is the only thing that makes sense. And continue developing the base application on all fronts. So that's mostly it. For more information, you can just follow me on Twitter at LefterisJP, or follow the application-specific account Rotkehlchen.io, or go to the website rotkehlchen.io. So yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.